everyone, I am Sneha, co-founder and CEO DevCompass, and I am absolutely thrilled to have you guys here. We have reached the stage 2 of our Claude certificate preparation course, and I really hope that you guys are following through well and having fun while doing this, as well as also completing your assignments on time. For everyone who do not have an idea of what I am talking about, please head over to devcompass.ai and you will get all the relevant information about the course. Let's get started. So this video is about tool descriptions. We have mentioned tool descriptions before, but we did not go much in detail. We did talk about how Claude functions and when is there a need of, calling tools and what are the relevant tools. We took an example of customer support agent and so on. But right now, why are we creating a presentation as well as like a specific video around this topic is because this tool descriptions are literally the single most common source of silent failures in production Claude systems, and they're almost written as an afterthought. So let's fix that. Let's move on to the next slide. Let me move this a little. Okay, fair. Yes, okay. So looking on the screen, you see 3 cards, and we will talk about how does Claude actually decides which tool to call. And I want you to really sit with this one because it surprises most developers the first time they understand it fully. You give Claude a list of tools. Each tool has a name and a description, a text that you basically write while you're building your agent. When Claude receives a user message and decides that it needs external information, it reads those tool descriptions and picks up the tool that best matches what it is trying to do. That is the entire selection mechanism. So if you look at the slide, the first one says message arrives. So Claude is given a user prompt. The user asks for, the requirement, and then Claude will read that context. Then Claude scans the tool descriptions. Claude will call the tool. If there is no code running to figure out which tool is right, there is no routing logic literally. It is purely Claude reading your words and making a judgment call based on them, which means if your words are ambiguous, Claude's judgment call will sometimes be wrong. And it won't tell you it was wrong. It will just call the wrong tool and proceed as if everything is fine. And we did talk about this in brief, that if you are suppose referring to a order database and you want to get information on where your order actually is, if you do not provide a tool description for the lookup tool that actually has that information and just routes it to maybe like the customer database or the tool like get description or something like that, then you will always get ambiguous results. So you have to be very careful about that. And if 2 tools could plausibly apply, Claude will always make a guess, and that is when you do not get the desired output. So let's make this very concrete. On screen you've got 2 versions. One is get customer, the tool that we built in stage 1 that retrieves a customer record from the database, which is exactly what I was referring to a few seconds ago. Look at the version A on the left. This is how most developers write a tool description on a first pass. Get customer information. What is that information? When should Claude look this versus lookup order? So if you write get customer information, that's it, nothing else, ask yourself, what does Claude know from it? It knows the tool gets something called customer information. It doesn't know what inputs to pass. It doesn't know what the tool actually returns. And critically, it has no idea when to use this tool versus lookup order, which also deals with customer related data. Because again, one scenario can have multiple tools listed for different results. So when Claude sees both tools and gets a message like what did the customer order last month, it genuinely cannot tell which one to call, so it will make a guess. But if you look at version B on the right, same tool, completely different description. Get customer now has a description, retrieves a customer record by customer ID or email address. Use this when you need to verify that a customer exists, get their account status, or retrieve their customer ID before looking up orders. Do not use this to look up order details. Use lookup order for that. So you have to kind of notice three things here. First, the inputs are named explicitly. Customer ID or email address. Claude knows what to pass in. Second, the purpose is very specific. Verify existence, get account status, retrieve the customer ID. Claude exactly knows what this tool is actually for. Third, and this is the most important sentence in the entire description, do not use this to look up order details. That one sentence defines the boundary between this tool and its sibling. Without it, the tools blur together. With it, Claude has a very clear rule for when not to use get customer. That's what eliminates the entire guessing that comes from Claude's end and giving ambiguous results. So, if we have to talk about what makes a tool description good, I would have boiled it down to 4 things probably, and they're all on screen right now. Let's talk about it one by one. First, name the inputs. Look at card 1. You need to tell Claude directly exactly what to pass in. Not an identifier, but a customer ID or email address. The more specific you are, the less Claude has to infer, and inference is where errors live. Second, state the purpose precisely. Get info is not a purpose. It's a noise. It's not enough information. Retrieves account status and customer ID is a purpose. Claude uses the purpose statement to decide whether this tool is the right one for the job at hand. If there is a vague purpose, it will force Claude to guess. Third is defining the boundary. This is one that most developers skip. We feel that if we have provided all the relevant information that is required, we do not need to specify what not needs to be done. But I think that is what really differentiates a decent description from an actually good description, so that Claude does not have to do all the guessing. So when you say when should Claude not use this tool, negative constraints are just as important as positive ones. Sometimes more so because they are what prevents Claude from routing to the wrong tool in ambiguous situations. Fourth is cross-reference sibling tools. If two tools are adjacent and in any way they operate in similar territory, name the other one explicitly in the description. Use lookup order for order details does not do two things at once. It tells Claude what this tool doesn't do, and it tells Claude exactly what to do instead. One sentence and both problems solved. So what happens if you go about it in production? If you skip the last two things, the boundary and the cross-reference, then you are setting up for failure mode. That shows up in the walkthrough if you go through it. So if you look at panel 1 on the left, two tools descriptions. Tool A, search KB, which searches the knowledge base. Tool B, lookup policy, looks for company's policy, right? They sound different. But now look at a panel 2, a real user message. What's your return policy for damaged items? Which tool should Claude actually call? The knowledge base might have an article about returns. The policy tool might have the formal policy document. Both could plausibly be relevant in this entire scenario. Claude sees two tools, both of which could match, and it has to pick one. It is about to guess. The two arrows on screen, same size, same weight, that's Claude's actual situation. It cannot tell. But panel 3 shows what happens next. Sometimes Claude searches for search KB and gets blog posts about returns. Wrong tool, wrong result. Sometimes it calls lookup policy and gets the correct policy document. Right tool, right result. Same user message, different outcome depending on the run. That's what non-deterministic means in this context. You cannot test your way to confidence when the routing is ambiguous. because the failure won't show up consistently. It will work 9 times and fail on the 10th, and the 10th will be in production with a real customer, and that is what you really need to avoid. And the exam is going to put you through such scenarios where you could think about scenarios that are actually going to work in production systems. So we have to be careful. Before you ship a tool definition, I think you should run through this checklist. Just save it. 5 questions, because I would literally read all of it to you because I want you to apply them to every tool you write from this point on. First, does the description name the exact inputs Claude should pass? Not a category of inputs, the specific fields or values. Second, is the purpose specific enough to distinguish from sibling tools? Could someone read this description and know immediately when to use this tool versus the one next to it? Third, does it say when not to use this tool? Have you written a negative constraint? Fourth, does it name the specific tool to use instead when this one doesn't apply? Not like just use another tool. Does it say which one? Fifth, and this is the test I want you to actually run mentally, could literally someone read this and unambiguously rate and correctly route 10 different user messages to the right tool without any other context? If you hesitate on any of those 5, please rewrite those tool description. Don't ship a description you are unsure about and just hoping that Claude will figure it out. Claude will not figure it out. It will route based on what you wrote in your code. If what you wrote is ambiguous, please be ready for getting the ambiguous writing. So the walkthrough right after this gives you 3 broken description pairs as tasks. For each one, you will identify the specific ambiguity using the checklist you just saw and then rewrite one of them. Do that before you watch the next video, because the next video is about what happens after the tool runs specifically and what you send back to Claude when the tool fails. But yeah, this was it about in the current video. Please go through once again and let's see what happens when a tool fails. See you in the next one.